Hi everybody, my name is Holly. Thank you for joining me for today's yoga. Today's flow is going to be a super short practice for when you are tight on time. We're going to be opening the front and the back of the body. I don't plan to do any vinyasas in today's practice. We are going to link our poses and sequences with the down dog. So if you find that your wrists or your shoulders are starting to get a little bit tired, there are options to do a tabletop pose, a child's pose or a puppy pose. I don't intend to use any props in today's practice, but have a block to hand if you like to use one. Just be mindful if you're working with any injuries today. If something doesn't feel good in the body, then just back out of it. I am going to be modifying my poses from my videos from now on because I am pregnant, so I won't be doing any deep twists. Shortly I won't be lying on my front, and with reclined poses I either won't be doing them or I won't be lying down on my back for very long. So we're going to start today in a child's pose, just to centre ourselves before we start moving. So bringing our big toes together. You can choose how wide you want your knees to be, and we're just going to lay our chest down towards the mat. Bringing our palms and arms onto the mat and resting our forehead on the mat. Don't worry if your hips are lifted off the heels. And just relax in here, starting to slow everything down. Just letting those hips feel heavy, just letting those shoulders and arms relax. Starting to slow down the breath, taking our inhales and exhales through the nose. And just taking a moment here to become present in the mind, letting go of any thoughts. On our next inhale, we're going to lift into a tabletop pose, making sure our wrists are underneath the shoulders, our knees are underneath the hips. We're going to move through some rounds of cat-cow. On an inhale, drop the belly, tailbone lifts, chest comes forward, gaze is forward. Exhale as we round and contract, taking the chin towards the chest. Inhale, belly drops, tailbone lifts. Exhale as we round and contract. And do this 2 more times. Move in with the rhythm of your own breath. And after your next exhale, just coming into a neutral spine. And then we'll just take our hands slightly in front of the shoulders. We'll tuck the toes, and on our next exhale, send our hips high into a downward facing dog. Keeping the knees bent here, maybe pedaling out the feet to warm up the backs of the legs, noticing if the calves and the ankles feel tight. And pressing down through the fingertips and knuckles of the hands, especially the index finger and thumb. And then coming into some stillness with the legs, we'll lower our knees down onto the mat. On our next inhale, we're going to take our right arm up towards the ceiling, opening up across the chest. On an exhale, thread the needle, bring the right hand behind the left wrist, coming onto the right shoulder and right ear. Making sure hips stay over the knees. You might want to bring your left hand forward, melting it down towards the ground, taking that stretch across the upper back. And then bringing our left hand back underneath the shoulder. On an inhale, taking our right hand up towards the ceiling, opening up across the chest. And exhale to lower that right hand back down. We'll go the opposite side. Inhale, reaching the left arm up towards the ceiling, opening up across the chest. Exhale, thread the needle, coming down onto our left shoulder and left ear. Maybe reaching that right arm out long, melting that armpit down towards the ground. And feeling that nice opening across the upper back. again, bringing our right hand back underneath the shoulder. We'll unwind on an inhale, taking our left arm up towards the ceiling, opening up across the chest. Exhale to lower that left hand back down. Tuck the toes, we're coming back into a downward facing dog. Option to pedal out the feet again. You can stay in some stillness with the legs. Don't worry if your heels are lifted off the mat. Gaze is towards the back of the mat. Holding no tension in the neck. On our next inhale, we'll ripple forward into our plank pose. Holding the core tight here. On an exhale, we'll start to bend at the elbows and lower all the way down into Sphinx pose, bringing our elbows underneath the shoulders, forearms and palms of the hands on the mat. Maybe adding a little pressure, pressing down through the palms of the hands, reaching the chest forward. On our next exhale, lowering the chest, bringing our hands underneath the shoulders, making our way into a tabletop pose, tuck the toes, downward facing dog. On our next inhale, reaching our right leg up towards the ceiling. On an exhale, bringing that right knee in towards the nose, bringing the weight of the body across the wrists, and taking that right foot in between the hands, using that right hand to help it get it there if you didn't quite hop it through. Keeping our left palm of the hand on the mat, we're coming into an easy twist. So we're going to bring our right hand up towards the ceiling and turn our body towards this bent leg. I'm keeping my chest facing down towards the mat. Maybe your gaze is up to this top hand if it's comfortable for your neck. On our next exhale, we're going to release our right hands down towards the mat. Steady ourselves so that we can make our way into a high lunge. On an inhale, lifting the chest up, making sure the right knee is directly over the ankle, reaching the arms up towards the ceiling. Squaring everything off to the front of the mat. And then releasing our hands down behind the lower back, interlacing the fingers, opening up across the chest, drawing those shoulder blades together. You may want to take this into a bit of a back bend, so taking our chest and gaze up towards the ceiling. And then releasing from here, reaching those arms back up towards the ceiling. And then on an exhale, bring our palms together and down through to heart center. We're going to step this left foot up to meet the right foot coming into our chair pose. Bringing our big toes together, heels slightly apart, sinking the hips. Making sure there's no arching through the lower back, so find length in the spine here. Maybe reaching the arms up overhead, bring them shoulder width distance apart. Gaze towards the hands, keep the weight of the body in the heels of the feet. On an exhale, we'll release down here into a forward fold, keeping a deep bend into the knees. We're going to bring our hands behind the lower back, interlacing the fingers. Our chest is down on the thighs. You may want to take your knuckles off the lower back and up towards the ceiling. Try to stay active in the shoulders so they're not hunching down towards the ears. Try and draw those shoulder blades down the back. On an exhale, we're going to release the hands down and step back into a downward facing dog. Repeating that sequence on the opposite side, lifting the left foot up towards the ceiling. On an exhale, bringing the left knee in towards the nose, weight comes over the wrist, step that left foot in between the hands. Use your left hand to help it get it there if you didn't quite step it through. Keeping the right palm of the hand onto the mat, we're coming into our easy twist. So taking our left hand up towards the ceiling, turning our body towards this bent leg. Hugging the belly in towards the spine. Maybe your gaze is up to this top hand. On our next exhale, releasing this left hand down towards the mat. Steady yourselves and then lift up into a high lunge, reaching the arms up overhead, square everything off to the front of the mat. And then releasing our hands down behind the lower back, interlace the fingers, drawing the shoulder blades together, opening up across the chest. On our next inhale, you may want to take your chest and gaze up towards the ceiling. Coming into a mini back bend. And then releasing from here, reaching our arms back overhead. And then bring our palms together and down through to heart center. We'll make our way into our chair pose. We're going to step our right foot up to meet the left foot, big toes together, heels slightly apart. Sink the hips. Keep the chest lifted. Maybe reaching those arms up overhead. Bringing the hands shoulder width distance apart, palms facing in towards each other. Weight is in the heels. And then exhaling to release down into a forward fold. Keep a deep bend in the knees, chest across on the thighs. Bring our hands behind the lower back, interlacing the fingers. Maybe taking your knuckles off the lower back. Working a bit into the shoulders. And then exhaling to release the hands down towards the mat, step back, downward facing dog. On our next inhale, reaching our right foot up towards the ceiling. Exhaling, bringing that knee in towards the nose, stepping that right foot in between the hands. Turning that back foot so it's parallel with the back of the mat, so we're opening the hips towards the long edge of the mat. We're going to bring our right forearm onto the right thigh and taking a variation of side angle pose, taking our left hand up towards the ceiling. So we've opened out towards the long edge of the mat, gazes up to the top hand if it's comfortable for your neck. Rolling that right thigh and knee open, so we're opening up into the hips. And then keeping our legs exactly where they are. We're going to lower this left hand down and we're just going to bring both hands down towards the mat. So we're coming into a fold, but just still working into the hips. And then walking our hands all the way around to the front of the mat. We're framing this front foot, turning up onto the back toes. We're going to step the right foot back, downward facing dog. On our next inhale, reaching our left foot up towards the ceiling. Exhaling, bring the left knee in towards the nose. Step that left foot in between the hands. Turn the back foot is parallel with the back of the mat. We're bringing our left forearm onto the left thigh and reaching our right arm up towards the ceiling. Coming into our variation of side angle pose. Maybe your gaze is up to the top hand. And keep that right shoulder rolling back, chest is open. Pressing down equally through both feet. Keeping those legs exactly where they are. On our next exhale, we're going to release both hands down towards the mat, coming into a bit of a fold. Working a bit more into those hips. And then walking our hands all the way around so we're framing this front foot, coming up onto the ball of the back foot, step back, downward facing dog. From here we're going to make our way into pigeon, so we're going to bring our right knee behind the right wrist, right foot over to the left side of the mat, scooting that left leg back, coming onto the top of the foot. Noticing how this feels in the right hip. If you're popping up a lot, you may want to use a block underneath your right hip. And then lowering the chest down towards the mat. Option to bring your forehead on the mat, maybe stack the fists and rest your forehead on the fists, or use a block. Feeling that nice opening into the right hip and the right glute. And then bringing our hands back underneath the shoulders. On an inhale, lift the chest. Tuck these back toes, scoot that back foot in slightly, and make our way into a downward facing dog. You might want to pedal out the feet, noticing how the right leg feels compared to the left leg. So let's even things out, bringing the left knee behind the left wrist, left foot over to the right side of the mat, scoot the right leg back. Coming onto the top of the right foot, sink those hips. Trying to feel even in the pelvis, maybe pop in something under this left hip if it's popping up a lot. On our next exhale, releasing the chest down towards the mat, lowering our forehead down, maybe on the mat, maybe you're making fists with the hands, maybe you're using a block. Noticing if you feel tighter in one hip compared to the other. Bringing our hands underneath the shoulders. On an inhale, lift the chest. Tuck those back toes, scoot that back knee in. And then making our way into a downward facing dog, pedaling out the feet. And then lowering our knees down onto the mat. Come to sitting on the heels. We're just going to bring our fingertips behind us, opening up across the chest, draw those shoulder blades together. Maybe taking our gaze up towards the ceiling. Working into the upper back, opening up across the chest. And exhaling to come back through to center. And then bringing our chest down across the thighs. Releasing our forehead down to the mat. Don't worry if your hips are lifted off the heels. From here, we're going to bring our hands behind us, holding onto the heels. We're going to open up into the back of the neck and the shoulders. We're coming into a rabbit pose. So we're going to roll onto the crown of our head as we lift our hips up and off the heels. And keeping your hands onto the feet. Feeling that opening across the upper back and the shoulders. If this doesn't feel good, then just come straight into a child's pose. And exhaling to release back down. And then bringing our knees maybe a little bit wider so that we can rest in child's pose. Laying our chest down towards the mat, reaching the arms out long, forehead rests on the mat. Sink those hips. And taking a moment here after our short practice to see how the body feels. Bring our hands back in towards us as we lift the chest. And we'll release from here, coming into a easy seated pose, so either sitting on your heels or coming to cross-legged. And we'll close off our practice, bring our palms together at heart center, bowing our forehead to our fingertips. Give yourselves a thank you for making time to get on the mat today, and thank you very much for joining me. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.